Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome back for the second installment of Filthy Sports. I am John Campia. Good to have you guys here. I'm joined in studio by Jonathan Voico.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Ryan Myers is here again.
What's up, sports fans?
And you guys are here, so thanks so much for being here. We got a bunch of stuff we're going to talk about, but I want to remind everybody that, first of all, this is a brand new channel, and so thank you for being a part of it. Make sure you guys, if you're watching, if you like what we're doing here, make sure you click the thumbs up, leave a comment, all that kind of stuff really helps the channel. But I also want to remind you that Filthy Sports, the show, is available on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. There is an audio-only version of this show. If you want to listen to us in the car, when you're at the gym, or doing whatever it is you're doing, just go and search for Filthy Sports on Spotify or Apple Podcasts and subscribe to it today. Also want to remind you guys that we don't just talk sports around here. We also do a movie show every day. I've been doing it for many years. It's just simply at the John Campia YouTube channel. You can just search for my name on YouTube. Go ahead and find it. You can also find it on audio on Apple and Spotify, so go find that out. So if you're a sports fan but also like your movie stuff, go and find us there. I think you'll enjoy the conversations that we have. All right, guys. With that down, we got a bunch of things we got to talk about and a lot to get through, so let's get things started with this. Clearly the poster child, the pride of the NFL is DeShaun Watson. If there's anything that holds up the banner of ethics and honor and makes your league look good, it's got to be DeShaun Watson, right?
Sensing sarcasm here.
maybe a little bit. So, again, another black eye on the NFL. Of course, you guys remember a couple years ago, DeShaun Watson faced like 20 lawsuits about sexual harassment and sexual assault because he liked his private masseuses. He liked them. He liked giving a little tug and a squeeze, apparently. Is what he liked, at least according to the things. Now, he settled most of those. There's still one or two ongoing, I think, of those cases, but he settled most of them. Well, there's another one that came out that DeShaun Watson has now paid out. In legal terms, settled. The NFL website is saying Browns quarterback DeShaun Watson settles latest lawsuit. Latest, not the last. The latest lawsuit brought by a woman alleging sexual assault. Be optimistic. They wrote this is from AP. Cleveland Browns quarterback DeShaun Watson has resolved the latest civil lawsuit filed against him by a woman claiming sexual assault and battery. The plaintiff's lawyer, Tony Busby, said in a text message to the Associated Press on Monday that his client's claim against Watson has been settled confidentially. Now, basically what that means in plain English is DeShaun Watson took out his checkbook and wrote a big check. And in exchange for writing that big check, Busby's client is dropping the matter. So that's it. Busby, the lawyer for the woman, had threatened to have his client speak to the NFL. His client and what he says were two witnesses. Threatened to have his client and two witnesses speak to the NFL, which had opened an investigation against Watson. It's not yet known if Watson will face any further discipline from the league. Now, this is key. Like, aside from the fact that here we go again, NFL players' behavior, casting a bad light and putting a black eye on the league and the sport. But this is why settling was so important to him. Because if indeed Busby got his client and what they said were two witnesses and took them to the NFL, and the NFL kept its investigation open, if they found stuff, if the NFL found stuff, that could give Cleveland an out, an excuse, a legal loophole to void their contract with him. Now, we're going to talk about DeShaun Watson and his contract again in a minute here, but let's focus on the issue at hand. So he settles yet another one. I've lost count of how many this is he's had to settle.
I think there's two still active.
There's two still active. There's two that refuse to settle. So we'll see that. So that drama is still ongoing. We'll see what's going to happen there. But I mean, Ryan, this is, again, like, it seems like we can't go a year, like a season, without there being some kind of story about an NFL player acting and behaving badly. So, but again, look, he already went through 20 of them. Is this one really going to make any difference, or people just going to see the headline and then forget about
I think this is still that same time period probably when all these other things were happening. So, Cleveland knew all this and still traded for him.
Well, I think this one came after that. I think this one came after that. Yeah.
I mean, it's a history of this stuff happening. So, but yeah, I think the Browns were hoping so they can get out of this contract. But like you said, if everything's confidential, NFL can't do another investigation. They can't suspend him for that stuff. So they're on the hook for $95 million guaranteed money still.
Yeah, it might be even more than that. Now, listen, the NFL can still suspend him. I mean, like, 'cause the commissioner has the commissioner's exemption, right? Where the commissioner can, at his discretion, suspend somebody, but you'd want it to go through. And I think for traditionally speaking, the NFL has been, hey, if you settle this thing in a court, then it's settled with us, sort of thing. So we'll see if anything else happens with this. Anyway, guys, the question is for you. DeShaun Watson in the headlines again for all the wrong reasons. What do you think about this? I mean, again, this is like what, number 21, 22? Is it really going to make any difference to how people perceive the situation? Maybe it will. Whatever you guys think, do us a favor and jump in the comments section and let us know what you think. All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to this, shall we? Sticking on the topic of DeShaun Watson and glory and victory and none of that is associated with his name. But Ryan was just alluding to what was at the time this ridiculous record-breaking $230 million contract. But here's the catch. All guaranteed. All guaranteed. It's the highest all guaranteed contract in the history of the NFL. And the Cleveland Browns gave that to a guy who had sat for over a year, hadn't played in over a year due to suspension, was facing a whole bunch of court appearances and lawsuits and all this kind of stuff. And they decided to sign this guy for $230 million in guaranteed. Well, surely that must have been worth it. Well, we were planning yesterday, and Ryan can attest to this. We were planning yesterday, today, we were going to do a story on DeShaun Watson because this year has been abysmal. It's been absolutely terrible for DeShaun and the Cleveland Browns, right? And so we were going to do a story today basically saying this is the worst signing in NFL history. I mean, you can talk about, you can talk about the deal for Albert Hainsworth.
Yeah.
That was a terrible one. You can talk about the Russell Wilson deal in Denver. Yeah. That was definitely a bad one.
And there's bad, draft picks that Jamarcus
all
Russell
that kind of
back in the day and Ryan Leaf this one's
was the worst. Yeah. And then as we were getting ready to do that, CBS Sports beat me to it. As CBS Sports put out an article calling the worst signing in NFL history. Now, understand, besides the $230 million, for those of you who need a refresher on this, besides the $230 million, DeShaun Watson, this is what they gave up to get DeShaun Watson. In 2022, Cleveland traded 3 first-round picks. Football is not like a lot of other sports. First-round picks are gold. They traded 3 first-round, get this, in 2022, Cleveland traded first-round picks in 2022, 2023, and 2024 in exchange for Watson, along with a third-round pick in 2023, a fourth-round pick in 2022, and a fourth-round pick in 2024. On top of the trade, the Browns signed Watson to a 5-year, fully guaranteed $230 million contract. That was the largest contract and most guaranteed money given out in NFL history.
Does this guy I don't know much about. Does this guy levitate? I just want to make sure. Does he?
He teleports the ball directly to the end zone.
Do you have telekinesis thinking he can guide the ball?
Yeah.
No, you'd think, but surely you get what you pay for, right? I mean, look, we can talk about Major League Baseball and the deal that Ohtani got, but what did Ohtani do? Oh, nothing much. Just the first season, created the 50-50 club and took the Dodgers to his first playoff appearance. And by the way, he hasn't even started pitching yet. So yeah, you get what you pay for. Has Cleveland gotten what they paid for?
Pays for a lot of settlements.
Yeah.
He's keeping the Browns in the headline.
Yeah. I
mean, for heaven's sakes, last year, most of the wins the Cleveland Browns got was on the back of Joe Flacco.
Old man, yeah.
Old man Flacco.
Yep.
Who, by the way, is still lighting it up for the Colts.
Good. And I don't know if you're going to get to it, but they basically dumped Baker in the trash and he's actually
Oh,
not horrible. So that was another waste of that first round pick too.
That's the other thing. They took Baker Mayfield, who had gotten them to the playoffs for the first time in ages, and then who, instead of going on injury reserve, toughed it out and played through an injury one entire year because the team needed him, and his reward was they ran his ass out of town so they could sign DeShaun Watson. Let me know right now, armchair NFL GMs, who you taking to be your quarterback right now? Baker Mayfield or DeShaun Watson? You don't even have to think about it. Obviously, you're taking Baker Mayfield, right? So what has Watson done? He's done nothing. He's done last year was Joe Flacco. Well, what's he done this year? Take a look at this. He has thrown for an average completion percentage of 60.2%, with games of 53%, 56, 64, 53, and one great game where he still only threw 176 yards of 75%. But has he thrown for 300 yards? Hell, he hasn't even thrown for 200 yards. In his games this season, he has thrown for 125, 176, 196, 186, 169. He hasn't even had a 200-yard game. He's thrown for 5 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. And by the way, you can think, well, certain numbers might look good and certain numbers might look bad. Let's look at what all the math wizards like. The number of the math wizards, the QBR. Okay, let's look at the QBR. I mean, Josh Allen's number 1.
He's
Joe
not
Burrow's
top 3?
number 2.
Oh, okay.
He's not top 3. Well, okay, maybe he's in the top 10. No, not in the top 10. Is DeShaun Watson in the top 15? No. Is he in the top 20? No. Where is DeShaun? Oh, there he is, number 31.
You're about to pass my name, and I don't even play.
I'm not even playing with 21.
He is leading in assaults, though.
Yeah. He has more assaults than that 21.
He leads the league in sexual assaults. Yeah. Well done.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think there's any way around it. When you look at what you got, which has been dead lead weight, where you're literally your backup quarterbacks have gotten you far more production and far more wins, even in old man Flacco.
Yeah.
And you're ranking amongst the bottom of everything, and you traded 3 first-round picks, 3 other picks, and $230 million guarantee. Ryan, look, obviously the Ryan Leaf drafting, Hainsworth's contract, Wilson's contract. I don't think anything's close. I think this is the worst deal in NFL history.
It is. The thing with those guys is they had like proven record and they didn't have all the off the field issues.
Right. Yeah.
This is, you knew what the problems were and you still gave him a fully guaranteed thing, knowing what happened. Now on the Texans, he was decent. I'm not going to say he was crap on the Texans, but he was not worth that money if you include all the off field stuff, and you're getting rid of a good quarterback you already have. All those picks, which could have helped solidify the team around Baker.
Oh, and by the way, how those picks worked out for the Texans.
Cleveland's never been good. So they're like, cool, we'll take your first round picks. I think someone said in the chat, like the GM, I'm not sure if that's the same GM they have now that did this, but he should be fired. This is a horrible, they basically debilitated their team. I looked it up and if they try to cut him, they have $170 million in dead cap.
Right. Which is why, going back to the last story, the Browns were kind of hoping that this would go to NFL disciplinary, so maybe they could have a legal out to kill his contract.
I mean, they can restructure things, but why would he restructure? Like, he's getting all this money no matter what happens. Obviously, if they did cut him, would anybody sign him after this?
And probably can you bench a $230 million
quarterback? Think you just send him home? Like,
yeah, but can you do that? Can you have so much of your payroll wrapped up in a guy that you then sit on the bench? And who's their backup right now?
It's Jameis Winston.
It's Jameis Winston, who might be a better quarterback than he is.
I think he is, and they're like the same age. I think Jameis is 1 year older than him. So, and he put up good stats in Tampa, and he was the backup in New Orleans. I would give him the shot. I mean, you're seeing what's happening. He really can't be any worse than what, Watts is doing. I would give him a shot.
And in the world of poetic justice, where did the guy that they ran out of town for Watson, where did that guy end up? Tampa Bay.
Tampa Bay, yeah.
Who is the backup to Watson right now? Where's he from? Or at least where did he get drafted?
Yeah,
Tampa Bay. Yeah. So it's like, kind of working out. Anyway, guys, question is for you. What do you think about this? I mean, maybe you're thinking this is hyperbole. It's like, John, there have been worse deals in the NFL. I contend there haven't been. This is probably the most disastrous thing. You forget even the money. Forget the $230 million guaranteed. You gave away 3 first-round draft picks for this, and you've got nothing in return. And whatever little success you've had since he's been around has usually been on the arm of a backup quarterback. I don't know. Maybe you can think of one that we're forgetting about, but whatever you guys think about this, jump down into the comments below and let us know your thoughts. All right. With that down, guys, let's move on to this, shall we? The New England Patriots, in a very short window of time, I mean, this is a great example of the parity in the NFL, because it ain't that big of a gap of time that we went from unstoppable dynasty to what I think is inarguably the worst team in the NFL right now, which is them. And the quarterback for that team has been Jacoby Brissett. Well, according now to reports coming out, their number 3 pick, Drake May from North Carolina.
Woo! Oh, sorry.
Woo! Is going to be now the starting quarterback, as the reports coming out is that Jacoby Brissett has been benched and they're now going to go with their rookie. Now, I have a special place in my heart for Brissett, because do you remember that year that Tom Brady got suspended for a bunch?
Yeah.
And New England had 2 backup quarterbacks. They had the Graps, Garoppolo, and they had Jacoby Brissett. And under Garoppolo and Brissett, while Tommy was sitting out his suspension, they went undefeated, or at least for a long streak. And they both played great, lights out. So they bring back Jacoby Brissett. But I mean, this really shouldn't be a surprise to anybody, not just because the Patriots are 1-4 and really should be 0-5, but Brissett's performance, again, hasn't been good. Not as bad as DeShaun Watson, but they haven't been good. Take a look at this. This is Brissett's numbers. He's thrown for, 160 yards, 168, 98, 149, and 121. Through 5 weeks, he's thrown for under 700 yards, only 2 touchdowns. He's been protecting the ball.
Yeah.
He's been protecting the ball, only 1 turnover, well, at least with 1 interception. But his passer complete rating is 58.5%. Now, look, you could have Peyton Manning in his prime quarterbacking this team right now. I don't know if they're anything more than a 2-3 team anyway, but you're clearly not going to progress with Brissett. I still like him as a backup quarterback. Again, he can manage a game. He can protect the ball. He can do all the things you want a backup quarterback to do. And I was cheering for him. I mean, I was personally really cheering for him to do well, but it clearly has not worked out. And you might as well move to the young guy. You used huge draft capital to get him. Are they pulling the trigger too soon here, Ryan, or is this the right move?
I mean, there's no future with Brissett, like you're saying. He's basically a backup. I do think in a better circumstance, he would have put up better numbers, but I think the Patriots have the worst O-line in the league, and they just lost their center.
Yeah.
So if you're running for your life all the time, you're not going to complete a lot of passes. I think they kind of knew this because before he hopped on, I was doing some research, and they basically were saying that May was taking 30% of the first team snaps in practice.
Which kind of foreshadowed they might have been looking to make a switch.
Which backups usually don't take that much, maybe 10%. So I think they were kind of ready for this. And in the preseason, May was better than Brissett, but you don't want to start him initially. And I just think, they're just going to put him in there and hope he can, juice them up and get him to get some wins and get some experience. But they don't have a lot of weapons. They don't have an O-line. I think their special teams is not great. So I wouldn't expect him to light it up. But if he's going to be your starter, I guess you give him the chance with the expectation that he doesn't have a lot of stuff around him. So he's going to make mistakes, which Brissett probably wouldn't make. But maybe there's a chance he
there's a learning curve there
exactly.
too, right? There's a learning curve. And here's the thing. Look, to me, ideally, I think the NFL and most teams in the NFL today way too much rush their rookie quarterbacks into the number 1 spot. I think ideally you have a situation like Jordan Love, right? You draft Jordan Love high, you have him sit behind a talented veteran quarterback like Aaron Rodgers was in Green Bay, You have him sit behind that, learn the game, adapt to the game. And then what happened when Jordan Love got his break? Well, let's put it this way. Aaron Rodgers last year at the Green Bay didn't make the playoffs. Jordan Love's first year as a starter made the playoffs. Yeah. That's the ideal, but May is not going to get that behind Brissett, right?
No,
he's not going to be able to learn. He's not going to be able to see how to win. He's not going to be able to do that. So I think you're right. Now's the time to make the move, and they made the move. Guys, question is for you. What do you think about this? The New England Patriots have changed Super Bowl predictions everywhere by benching Jacoby Brissett. Of course, I'm being facetious there. What do you think about it? Do you think they should have just let him play? Do you think they should keep May on the bench for a year regardless? Do you think it's the right time to put him in and let him start getting some experience since it's a lost season anyway? Whatever you guys think, jump down into the comments section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to this, shall we? In Filthy Sports' first NBA topic,
Ooh.
History was made the other night in the NBA. Now, in other sports, it has happened. For instance, in baseball, we have had a team where a father and son have played together. As we see the Griffin boys, right? See him there? Father and son. In hockey, Mr. Hockey, Gordie Howe, is the only professional athlete to play in his sport in 4 different decades.
How old was he there?
I don't know, 73.
I know, how is he?
In the old days, he'd be like 42, but he looked like that. So
Yeah, I think he's 38 there.
Yeah.
If like,
This is back when NHL players didn't wear helmets.
Oh, God.
And in his last year or two, you see him because his hair was a little bit longer too. So you see his white hair flowing in the wind as he's skating around. But he played with his sons. But for the first time ever now in the NBA, a father and son have taken the court in a preseason game, but still an official NBA game, as LeBron and Bronny James got on the court at the same time in their preseason game. LeBron put out on his social media posts, he said, "Wow, that was surreal." The NBA then posted LeBron, James, Bronny James, father and son duo share the court together. Here's a little shot of both of them on the court. It's the first time it's ever happened. Now, obviously, because of how young professional athletes tend to have to stop playing the game, it's very difficult to get a father and son duo.
And LeBron's played for 22 years now.
Yeah, LeBron's been around. I mean, he's about to turn 40, all that kind of stuff. So his kid's in there. Now let's look at this from a couple of different angles. From the NBA's point of view, this is a big win for the NBA, right? It's a big story. Yep. You got a father, you got the highest scoring player of all time. Some people believe the greatest player of all time in LeBron James, and his progeny is coming up. His son is going to play with them. It's a great story for the NBA. Yes. For the Lakers, it's a great marketing tool.
Yeah.
You go in there, you draft LeBron's son, all they got to do now is reenact the opening to The Lion King and have LeBron pick him up and hold him up as they come out in the crypto arena. I'm
sure Bronny would love that.
Yeah,
He'd really appreciate
would feel really good about
up.
that. I mean, so it's a good move. Now, look, this brings up the whole question again about should the Lakers have even drafted him? Because the big argument going around was, look, if he wasn't LeBron James's son, would Bronny James have been drafted at number 55? No, I don't think there's anybody on the planet who's going to say yes. He got drafted because he's LeBron James's son. He's not a bad basketball player, don't get me wrong. But would he have gotten drafted 55? No. So a lot of people will say, well, this was the argument I heard. They said, he's taken somebody else's spot, somebody else who deserved to get drafted at 55. But here's the thing. And I feel bad that I can't remember the name of the YouTube channel, but I remember shortly after the draft and Bronny got drafted, and there are all these people out there saying, he stole somebody else's spot. Somebody else should have been given that opportunity. I watched this YouTube video, and again, I feel terrible that I forget the name of the channel. Maybe some of you guys will know what it is. But they did a historical breakdown, looking at what percentage of people drafted number 55 or later actually ever went on to have a meaningful NBA career. And I think it was single digits. Like it was like basically nobody.
Yeah. And a lot of times teams will sell the pick for cash.
Yeah, we'll just
it won't even, they're just like throw-ins or whatever.
it won't even mean anything. So basically what this YouTube channel's point was that, listen, if they didn't draft Bronny and somebody else got picked in the 55s, they weren't going to have a legitimate NBA career anyway. Mathematically speaking, it was highly unlikely they were going to have an NBA career anyway. So what did the LA Lakers do? They saw an opportunity to create some history, to create excitement amongst the fan base, because for good reasons or bad, this is creating a story. People are talking about this. People in LA are kind of excited to see LeBron and his son on this thing. Listen, and what did you have to do for it? A number 55 pick? It's like some people are complaining like they gave up a number 12 pick or something like that.
Yeah, if it was first round, there definitely would have been some.
But
that would never happen.
It never would have happened. This was so far down the line. Anyway, as somebody who's been following the Lakers basically your whole life.
Full disclosure, Laker fan. So everyone can hate me, whatever. That's fine.
How do you feel about, number one, how did you feel about Bronny's getting drafted to LA? And how do you feel about now seeing history getting made of the first time a father and son are on the court?
Well, for a long time, there was the whole story of who's going to draft him so LeBron will go to their team. Because they were like, whoever can get him can get a play. And then unfortunately, Bronny had health issues. He was highly recruited out of high school. He can never live up to the hype of being LeBron's son. That's just the fact. I mean, he has defensive skills. He can play, but I think for me, he probably should have stayed in college another year, but he was able to come out. It definitely is a nepotism.
And don't forget, he had that heart issue that scared everybody.
Yeah. So definitely he's LeBron's son. So he got, picked by the Lakers, but he's not the only case. Giannis has his brothers on his team.
Yeah, nobody complains about that, right?
So other teams have sons or family in the front office, so it's around. It's not an excuse, but I'm like, it's not the first time this has happened, and it's a good story. And the Lakers are a family business basically, so they're always going to kind of do these things, and they do cater to their superstars. With Kobe, they gave him a contract when he was injured to keep him happy, basically, and show loyalty. And this is kind of the same thing with LeBron. If LeBron never came to the Lakers, we would be the worst team in the league. No joke. Like, Davis wouldn't have come here. We wouldn't have got a title in 2020. Like, he basically bailed us out. We gave a lot of picks for Davis, but he basically saved the Lakers franchise. So I think this is them doing him a solid. He's still here. I think he's still good. He's 40 years old. No other player has played this long and puts up these numbers. So he was just in the Olympics. So, I don't know. I think they did it as a favor to him, but I do think they're interested in what he can do. He's a good defensive guard. At least he has the makings of it. I think he probably will need to spend some time. Not probably. He does need to spend some time in the G League. I think once the preseason's done, most of the season's going to be in the G League, and probably towards the end of the year, if there's injuries, he'll probably come up and be on the bench. I don't think he's going to get much time unless there's a blowout.
He probably won't get much. So, I mean, that's ultimately the end of it, right? Because that's my argument with a lot of people is this: the Lakers got Bronny. Ultimately, what's the downside? You think they were going to get a different pick at number 55 that was going to be a game changer? Never happens. And then I hear somebody say, well, he's taking up a roster spot. Do you know how many guys I saw in the Lakers? Like, I went to about 12 Laker games last year. There's at least 2 guys that I saw on the Laker bench every single game that never got off the bench. So he's not really taking up anything important.
No, and like Reeves, I think he didn't even get drafted. So there's players that are good. It just, everyone's making a big deal out of it. I don't see the downside really.
Yeah, I mean, it is what I mean, and I think you're right. I think if some other team had gotten Bronny, I think LeBron would have looked at leaving. And then what do the Lakers have?
Don't put me in that spot, John. I'm trying not to think about that. Davis would ask for his trade, and then that's
all right, guys. Question is for you. What do you think about this? I mean, whatever team you're a fan of in the NBA, you got to admit, it's a nice story that for the first time ever in the NBA, you got a father and son playing on the court together. Probably not going to happen a lot in the regular season, but who knows? Whatever you guys think, jump down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's talk about this, shall we? Could have talked about this yesterday, but there was just so much other stuff that we had to cover. But this past weekend was wild for NCAA college football. In the sense that, I mean, it's always a big story, like when a ranked team gets beat by an unranked team. It doesn't happen terribly often. This weekend, they weren't all ranked against unranked, but there were like 4 major upsets this weekend. We had Tennessee getting beaten by Arkansas. We had Missouri beaten by Texas A&M, although Texas A&M was also ranked, but like ranked number 21 or something like that. You had number 10 Michigan get beat by Washington, unranked Washington. And you had USC get beat by Minnesota. And you had Alabama, that was ranked number 1, beat by, I got to double check this. It can't be right. No, there it is. Vanderbilt. Got beat by Vanderbilt. Which brings up the question, which was the biggest upset? I'm going to tell you which I think was the most consequential upset. All right. Now, you may agree or disagree with me, but I think the most consequential upset, I'm not going to say the biggest upset. We'll get to that in a second. The most consequential upset, I think, was USC losing to Minnesota. And the reason I say that is this. Up to 2 weeks ago, hell, up to this week, a lot of people thought, now that the playoff has been expanded, a lot of people had USC written in as one of those playoff spots, that USC was probably going to get. Even after last week, a lot of people still thought USC was going to get one of those playoff spots. And they laid an egg again. At number 15, they lost to unranked Minnesota. I think it was 24-17. Mm-hmm. So they laid an egg again. And I think this was the most consequential upset because I honestly think their playoff hopes are over. I think they're done.
So they have too many losses now.
Yeah. Well, that, and they simply don't look good. Mm-hmm. I don't see them. They're going to end up ranked 21, 22 next week, if at all.
Maybe. Yeah,
maybe not. If at all. Are they going to climb back high enough to get into the playoff? I don't think so.
Yeah.
So I think the most consequential upset was USC losing because that has major ramifications. I mean, Michigan lost again, yes. I still think Michigan's in the hunt. Tennessee lost, yes. But at number 4 and the way they've looked, they'll be fine. Tennessee will be in there. But man, without a doubt, the biggest upset for 2 different reasons. It's not one reason. It's for 2 different reasons. Was Alabama losing to Vanderbilt. Not just because they were the number 1 team in the country and getting beat by an unranked team, but they just came off of one of the greatest college football, regular season college football games I'd ever seen. That game the other week between Bama and Georgia, that was one of the craziest, most thrilling, most back and forth, a tale of 2 halves, exciting football games that I had ever seen. I mean, Georgia's coach talking about Bama's quarterback in the postseason say, you got the best running back in the league. Oh, and he also happens to throw the ball.
Yeah.
I mean, he was looking like the guaranteed Heisman winner. They literally, they weren't ranked 1 and 2, but I think most people kind of acknowledge these are the 2 best teams in the country. Playing in the regular season, just a bonkers game, absolutely crazy, and Alabama beats Georgia. And then the next week they lose to Vanderbilt?
Did they actually, get to the game on time? I don't know.
I remember I was watching one of the sports shows. I forget which one it was. But, they were talking about, this guy's now the next Nick Saban because they beat Georgia. And one of the callers called in. I mean, it's become viral. Some of you guys might have seen it. But it's like this guy said now, I forget. Look it up for me. I forget the name. I just had it, the name of the new Alabama coach. But he called in and say, you are now forever tainted. Because you'll be the guy who won the big game and lost it against Vanderbilt.
I'm going to say his name wrong, but it looks like Callan DeBoer.
That's right.
Yeah.
So it's like how you go from winning one of the most thrilling games against arguably the best team in football to coming in I understand there's a letdown, there's a hangover. I get all that. You can't lose to Vanderbilt.
They were 23.5-point favorites.
Yeah, 23, but they were picked to win by 23.5 points. They were only off by 29 points.
And then I looked at it. Vanderbilt is 0-60 against a top 5 ranked team in history.
That's the other thing.
So,
They had
like, they've
never
never
in their
won.
history
Yeah.
ever beat a top 5 team.
So
How now? Look, at the end of the day, Alabama's going to be fine. This isn't like USC where losing this game means their national title hopes are dashed. Not at all. They'll get into the playoff. They'll have a serious run to the title, all that kind of stuff. So it'll be fine. But I just don't understand. I don't get it. I just don't get it, Ryan. How you go in and play the type of game they played the week before against arguably the best team in the country. Some will say it's Texas. I get it. But
Yeah.
I'm just saying arguably in Georgia and then come out and lay. How does this happen?
well, you said letdown game. It has to be a letdown game. You just beat the best team, and now you're going against this team where you probably think they have no shot in hell to beat us, and then you let basically their quarterback Vanderbilt Diego Pavia completed 80% of his passes. So they weren't stopping him. He didn't throw for like 5,000 yards or anybody. He basically marched down the field, and they had the lead the majority of the game. At half, it was 20-7. So it wasn't like a come from behind crazy Hail Mary. It was this team basically beat them the entire game. So they either weren't focused, they weren't prepared at all, and they just caught them off guard maybe. But I mean, that's on the coaching at that point. Like the players got to execute the plan. Maybe the plan wasn't, there was no plan for this team because it's such a bad team. We should just beat it. Like they should just roll over and die because we're Alabama. So, but yeah, this is, people are saying it's the biggest upset maybe ever. Just crazy.
Yeah, absolutely nuts. Anyway, guys, question is for you. There was a lot of upsets this past weekend. What to you, let me ask you both the questions. What to you was the most consequential upset? I think it's the USC one, but maybe you think it's one of the others. And second, what was the biggest upset? I don't know that anybody's going to disagree that it was the Alabama game, but whatever you guys think, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's talk about this. Last night, one of the best nights of the week is Monday night. You had the Monday night football games. You have the Kansas City Chiefs, the undefeated Kansas City Chiefs, taking on the New Orleans Saints. Now, New Orleans came out at the beginning of the season like they were coming out of a cannon. Remember that game against Dallas where they just applied boot to ass?
Lit them up. Yep.
And just lit them up. I mean, their offense was flowing, stuff like that. Wheels came off. Going into the Kansas City game last night, they had lost 2 games in a row and didn't look particularly good at all in those games. And they come in against a 4-0, an undefeated team that we talked about this yesterday, that definitely undefeated. They look great, but they don't look dominant to me. Mm-hmm. So last night they go in, Kansas wins, goes 5-0, 26-13. Is the bigger story here the Kansas win, or is the bigger story the New Orleans loss? On the arguing on the side that it's the Kansas win, you say, hey, now they're 5-0. They look solid. They go, hey, listen, obviously when we talk about the Kansas City Chiefs, everybody wants to talk about Patrick Mahomes. Everybody wants to talk about Travis Kelce. Everybody wants to talk about Rice, although now he's injured.
Last night, Juju
and Hunt.
Big. Yeah.
Hunt ran it up. Like the prodigal son returns and Hunt runs it up and all that kind of stuff. But a lot of people lose sight. I think I'm guilty of this too. Kansas City has a hell of a defense.
Yeah.
Across the board, they're like top third in the league in almost every defensive category. And they held them to 3 points. But again, Ryan, we were talking about this yesterday. In the midst of all 5 of these games, they have never looked dominant to me. To me, the bigger story is actually the New Orleans Saints loss. Number one, because it's now their 3rd loss in a row after looking like they were going to be legitimate contenders in the first couple of weeks, especially with that ass beating they put on the Cowboys. And on top of all that, they lost Derek Carr. Oh, and by the way, the 2 teams that most people agree that Davante Adams is looking at going to, one of them was so he could go play with his old quarterback, Derek Carr. And I don't know if Carr is going to be out a week. I don't know if he's going to be out a month.
It said he had an oblique injury and he was going to get an MRI today, but he basically said he couldn't throw. Stretching, trying to throw.
Yeah, so I have no idea how long that's going to keep him out for. So does that take New Orleans off the map for a possible landing spot for Davante Adams? Maybe, maybe not. So I watched that game, Ryan, and I was hoping to come away from it learning a couple of new things. I really didn't learn anything new. Kansas, again, the defense was great. Offense was operating very well. best coach in football, best quarterback in football. And they won the game. But again, not impressively, not dominantly against a team that has now dropped its third in a row. What were your takeaways and what stood out to you about last night's game?
Well, I'm glad someone else. Well, Kelsey had 9 catches, so that was good.
Yeah,
to see
he
him
looked
get
dominant
back to
again.
He also had a crazy play where he like lateraled it 15
Yes,
yards to the side.
that's right.
Like we mentioned, Juju stepped up and had 130 yards, so they had another weapon because of the Rice out and stuff. So I mean, I don't want to do a comparison, but they kind of remind me of like. I don't want to say I will say it. They kind of remind me of the Patriots. They don't. Besides the year when they had Moss, they just win. They know how to pull the game out. They have a good plan. They probably have one of the best coaches still, Reed. So
I think he might be the best coach in football.
They're doing what they need to do. Mahomes is good. He's the best quarterback to me. So he's doing what he needs to do, and they pull it out. The defense, like you're saying, I looked up their run defense, especially. Like Kamara is really good on the Saints, and even with like him, Derrick Henry, and a couple other teams, nobody got more than 60 yards rushing. So they're playing for their defense and not making a ton of mistakes. I know Mahomes threw a pick last night, but they're just doing what they needed to win. They have a good kicker. They have a good home field advantage.
Their special teams are good. Their defense is off the charts.
And Hunt came back and put up good numbers and scored a touchdown. So, I think they're doing what they knew. They're 5-0. So, they're on a bye now. But after the bye week, they come back and they play the Niners in San Francisco. So we'll see how that goes.
The way the Niners are looking, that's a winnable game.
Yeah, so it's a tough one. And then the Saints, they play the Tampa Bay next week.
Now, let's jump back to a conversation we had yesterday.
Hmm?
Yesterday on Filthy Sports, we brought up a topic asking who is currently the best undefeated team. And at the time, the two contenders were, because they're the only two undefeateds, Minnesota, who were at 5-0, still are, and the Kansas City Chiefs, which were at 4-0.
Mm-hmm.
I believe the best team in football right now is Minnesota. At least that's what I said yesterday, right? And you believed the best undefeated team was the Chiefs. After watching that game last night, I will say for me, my opinion has not changed. Kansas didn't do it. Like, they won the game. They're one of the best teams in the league. Yeah. But they didn't do anything last night that made me believe that if they went head-to-head with Minnesota right now, they could beat Minnesota. So it hasn't changed for me. Did last night's game change anything for you? Do you still think the Chiefs are the best team in the league right now?
I think they're better. I also think Juju stepping up like that and Hunt showing what he can still do fills those gaps of the people that are injured. So, yeah, I'm still going to say they're the best team.
It's going to be interesting to see what happens with this particular team when Kansas comes up against an elite defense. It's going to be interesting to see what happens, because I think if they can put up 25, 28 points against let's say they played the Jets and they're able to put up like 28 against the Jets defense or something like that, I may convert. But right now I still got question marks. Yeah. Like, okay, that's great. Juju and Hunt and Kelsey for 9 catches against the Saints, but I want to see what they can do against like a higher level elite defense, but we'll see. Yeah. Anyway, guys, question is for you. You have a chance to see that Monday Night Football game? If so, what were your biggest takeaways from it, either from the Chiefs? I mean, clearly the Saints are going to be in trouble without Derek Carr. So they were already looking like they might be in trouble with them. Whatever you guys think, jump down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to our headline story here, shall we? In a shocking move, the New York Jets, I'm sorry, I mispronounced Aaron Rodgers, have fired head coach Robert Saleh.
Look at that scowl.
Look at that. That's a manly man.
Someone said he looks like Xerxes from 300, and now I can't unsee it. I can't unsee it now. Leonidas. I can't unsee
Our arrows will blot out the sun.
Yeah.
Little 300 reference there for it. They have fired Robert Saleh, which New York Jets owner, I keep on wanting to call him Ricky Bobby.
Woody Johnson.
Woody Johnson.
Not Woody Allen. I said
Bobby.
Woody Allen earlier, and I'm like, no, that's not him.
Woody Johnson, the first time ever in all of his years of owning the New York Jets, the first time he's ever fired a coach mid-season, has fired Robert Saleh, who, right now, this team is 2-3. In their last game against Minnesota, they were literally marching down the field for potential tie or win against Minnesota until Aaron Rodgers threw that boneheaded pick and ended it. They could be 3-2 right now and tied atop of the division.
Mm-hmm.
And they decided to fire Robert Saleh. And all across sports media today, because I watched it all across sports media today, it was shock. Like I was watching Rich Eisen, and he was like, I'm because he's a big Jets fan, right? He's like, shocked, didn't see it coming, totally shocked, all this kind of stuff. A lot of people very surprised by him. Again, the owner has never done this midseason before and all that kind of stuff. And so the question becomes, number one, two questions here. Why do this now?
Yeah. And
number two, the bigger question, was this the right move? Why do this now? Like, I mean, you're literally, listen, the Jets are playing the Buffalo Bills on Monday night. If they win that game, they are literally in first place in their division. I mean, 5 games in. If you were going to fire this coach, why not fire him in the offseason when you have a number of highly respected coaching candidates out there that you could have gone and replaced him if you wanted to in the offseason? Why 5 games in? Why when you're only 1 game out of first place? Why now? Well, you know what? CBS Sports found something out. And I honestly think this is it. They uncovered that Robert Saleh was looking at firing their offensive coordinator, Nathaniel Hackett, who is Aaron Rodgers' boy. That's Aaron Rodgers' boy. That's his guy. And Saleh was looking at fire him, and he was going to fire him, says the report, today. I'm going to go on record right now. I don't think there's any coincidence that Saleh was looking at maybe firing Aaron Rodgers' guy today.
Yeah.
And him getting fired today.
Some Game of Thrones stuff right there.
Yeah.
It's absolutely some Game of Thrones. Put the knife in his back before he puts it in yours. And now a lot of the sports media stuff is also, and I think there's something to this, that they just lost in London, where the New York Jets owner has spent 4 years being the ambassador to England. And Eric Mangini, former Jets coach, said in an interview on a podcast prior to that game happening, saying, don't underestimate how important this is to the Jets owner. He has a lot of billionaire buddies over there. He wants to look good there. He wants to win there. And if they lose that game, there could be consequences. That's what Eric Mangini said before the game. They go in there, and by the way, they lost to I think, the best team in the league right now. The number 1 seeded team in the league. They lost to the Minnesota Vikings, who are undefeated. And they lost because Aaron Rodgers, while trying to tie the game, threw a boneheaded interception.
He threw 3.
No, yeah, he threw 3 that game. But on the game tying, what could have been the game-winning drive, they could have won that game, and they could be 3-2 and all that kind of stuff. And so a lot of people think that you embarrass the owner in England, where he's got a lot of friends, and so they fired him that season. I think, honestly, to me, there is no question. This was, I don't care. The owners come out. Woody Johnson's come out and said, no, I didn't consult with anybody. I made the decision to fire him. Bullshit. Really? You didn't talk to your GM? Really? Bullshit. You didn't talk to Aaron Rodgers, who you basically mortgaged the future of this team to get a past his prime, non-playoff quarterback in his final year, Green Bay, that you let, and you're telling me you didn't talk. You hired his buddy as the offensive coordinator, and you didn't talk to Aaron Rodgers for making this move? Bullshit. Pure and simple. Bullshit. Of course he did. And really, it's just coincidence that on the day Robert Saleh was going to fire the offensive coordinator, and by the way, we're going to look at some numbers here in a second as to why he was going to fire the offensive coordinator in just a second. You're telling me it's just a coincidence that on the day he was going to fire Aaron Rodgers' guy, you step in and fire him? You're going to try to convince me that that's coincidence? Bullshit. That's coincidence. Now remember, Robert Saleh is primarily a defensive guy, right? And you hire an offensive coordinator to make your offense hum. I want us to look at some numbers. These numbers, I kind of knew these theoretically in my head, but when you actually look at these numbers, they are shocking. Check this out. Robert Saleh, defensive-minded coach, Aaron Rodgers' boy, offensive coordinator. Take a look at this. Look at the defense of the New York Jets for this year. In total defense, they rank number 2. In passing defense, they rank number 2. In rush defense, not as impressive, but still in the top half of the league, number 14. And their scoring defense, they give up the 5th fewest points of any team in the NFL. Eric Saleh is a defensive-minded coach. He's got his Hall of Famer quarterback and his boy as offensive coordinator to look after the offense. Okay, well, what's their offensive numbers? The New York Jets offense ranks number 27 overall. Their passing offense is in the bottom half of the league at number 19. Their rushing offense is dead last in the NFL at number 32, and their scoring offense is number 25. I want you to look at those two bottom numbers. You're not going to win many bloody games when you're number 25 in points scored, in points scored, when your defense is keeping them to only 5, and you're still 2-3. Look closely at these numbers, guys. And now the interim head coach is the defensive coordinator. Guys, the Jets defense under Robert Saleh was not the issue. The issue is you've got a Hall of Famer, one of the all-time greats, who is way past his prime at quarterback, who is now at best a mid to lower level quarterback in the NFL, who is now the boss and is calling the shots. And you got his guy, who is quite possibly the worst offensive coordinator in the game, and you're ranking number 27th in total offense. You going to tell me that Robert Saleh was the problem? Now, am I saying Robert Saleh is a great NFL head coach? I'm not saying that. But how can you have any common sense, look at these numbers and say, oh yeah, the problem's the head coach?
Yeah.
That's not the problem. So why am I saying this? If you're the New York Jets, if you're Woody Johnson, owner of the Jets, what on earth do you think you're accomplishing by firing Robert Saleh? If it's not Aaron Rodgers came up to you privately and said, I demand you fire Robert Saleh. If that's not the case, as they say it isn't the case, then what is your rationale for firing your defensive-minded head coach when you rank number 2 in the league in total defense and not let him fire the offensive coordinator who has them ranked number 27 in offense? What are the Jets thinking they're going to accomplish by doing this? It's absolutely asinine. And listen, their defensive coordinator is great. I know the 49ers try to get him away from the New York Jets. He's highly respected. And you know what? They're going to win some games because they got a defense that's number 2 in the league. They're going to win some games. Again, I just would ask anybody who thinks this is a good move, what do you think you're going to accomplish when the problem clearly wasn't your defense? How are you going to improve this team when you still have Aaron Rodgers at quarterback and his boy as your offensive coordinator, and you're number 32, you're dead last in the league in rushing, you're number 27 in total offense? Well, how did you just fix any problem? Ryan, make sense of this for me, because I don't see any sense to this whatsoever.
I can't make sense of this nonsense. No. Also, it's a huge distraction. Now everyone's going to be like, well, Aaron Rodgers pushed this guy out. Instead of just, like you said, they should have got rid of him at the beginning of the season. I do think he's been there. I think he's been there for 4 or 5 seasons. He's had to go through 6 different quarterbacks. So I think overall his tenure at the Jets, he had to put up with a lot of stuff too. But yeah, I don't know. I just think they're just grasping at straws. Like, if the problem is the offense, you got to make a change. They're not gonna cut Rodgers. They're not gonna get rid of him. And if they're not gonna let him cut the offensive coordinator, then yeah, they're gonna push him out. So I don't know. I'm baffled, honestly. 5 games into the season, like
5 games into the season.
And they're not
when
like
you're
0-5.
one game out of being
and they're not
number 1 in your division.
They're not 0-5. The rest of the division stinks. I mean, the Bills are good, but they're struggling too. So like, there's a chance. It's not completely out of the question for them to beat the Bills and go to the playoffs. So I don't know. I'm with you. It's a Rodgers thing. If he was going to fire Hackett, and all of a sudden he's gone instead, I mean, what else would it be?
Yeah,
it has to be that.
And I know I've said it 3 or 4 times already, but I got to put this out there again. Guys, think about this. You are the number 2 defense in the league. You have a defensive-minded head coach. Your offense under Aaron Rodgers and his boy are number 27 in the league. And you fire not the offensive coordinator. You don't bench your quarterback. No. Your solution to solving the problem is by not only firing the defensive-minded head coach, but then replacing him, at least on an interim basis, with your defensive coordinator. Defense isn't the problem.
Yeah, he's not going to be changing the play calls. It's still going to be on Hackett.
You're not addressing the problem.
Yeah, nothing's changing.
It's like you're driving down the highway towards Las Vegas and you blow a tire and you decide, you know what? I'm going to change a spark plug. Yeah. That's not the problem. No. You're not addressing the problem. So, and listen, I guarantee you this. Robert Saleh will be employed maybe by the end of this podcast. I mean, maybe he'll want to take some time off, but teams are going to I'm not saying he's going to get another head coaching job right away, but teams are going to be there's going to be a lot of teams lining up to hire him as their defensive coordinator. So he'll be employed again as soon as he wants to be employed. Maybe he'll want to take the rest of the year off. Maybe he'll want to take 6 weeks off. Maybe he'll want to start working again right away. But I guarantee you right now, his phone is ringing. His phone is ringing right now. So he'll end up somewhere, and I look forward to whatever team he ends up with, playing the Jets and beating the living shit out of them. Because, I mean, this team is a joke, man.
And make sure you learn how to hug Aaron Rodgers. Because that is what the bottom line is from this.
The hugs remember.
Yeah.
That is honestly one of the most awkward moments I've ever seen in the NFL. For those of you who know what we're talking about, there was that game a couple of weeks ago where like something good just happened and saw like a lot of NFL coaches went up to give a hug to Aaron Rodgers.
Like, no.
Rodgers double palmed him in his chest and like pushed him away. And
it was the equivalent of like you going for the handshake and someone does a fist bump and then you're like, oh, we doing the handshake, we doing the fist bump. Oh, I'm gonna grasp your fist.
I don't know what to do.
Okay, now I'm gonna go jump off a bridge.
I don't know what to do with my hands. It's too awkward. I don't know what to do. Anyway, guys, question is for you. Look, the Jets are going to win some football games. Their defense is just too good. And listen, Aaron Rodgers, although way past his prime, has still got some magic in him. They're going to win some games. But do you think the Jets are going to be a better team today, not firing the offensive coordinator and instead firing your defensive-minded coach when you're number 2 in defense in the league? I don't see the rationale here. Whatever you guys think, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, we're going to take a couple minutes here and take some questions from you guys in the live chat. Now, if you're in the live chat, type question here. Okay, so do me a favor. If you have a question for us to address, format it by writing question all in capital letters first, and then your question so we know that it's an actual question that you want to ask us, and let's take a couple of them right now.
Well, we got a couple coming. These guys, they learn fast, right? Yeah. They already got the questions coming. Espinoza says, which trade was worse, Watson to Browns or Russell Wilson to Broncos?
So listen, obviously the Russell Wilson to the Broncos was a disaster for the Broncos. I mean, there's no way around it. All that money for so little results, but there's no doubt the Watson thing. They gave up 3 first-round picks. They've gotten 0 results. Any wins they got, any real significant wins, came on the arm of a backup quarterback. $230 million in guaranteed money, and they're getting nothing out of him. Listen, at least, Wilson, he showed flashes last year, right? He actually started throwing the ball pretty well. They went on a bit of a run, but I think by far the worst is the DeShaun deal.
Yeah, because like we talked about earlier, they knew what they were getting into.
Yeah.
Like the off the field stuff and all that. Like, yeah, Russell didn't play well, and I think he's past his prime too, but he tried. I don't know. He tried, it just didn't work out. So, yeah.
All right, what's next?
I'm not sure how familiar you are with the CFL, but Bat Shark Repellent asks, John, did you grow up a Tiger Cats fan? And what CFL role would you like to see in the NFL adopt?
I absolutely. Oski Wee Wee, Oski Wawa, only Hamilton Tiger Cat fans know what that means.
I thought you just had a seizure.
Oski Wee Wee, Oski Wawa. Yeah, only Hamilton Tiger Cat fans know what that means.
I'm like, that phrase is either out of Minnesota or Canada. It's
And what do you got in the New York Jets? Who's the guy with the fire hat?
Oh, Fireman Ed.
Fireman Ed, right? You got Fireman Ed. In Hamilton, we had Pigskin Pete. We had this average guy who was just at every game, everybody knew him, Pigskin Pete. Absolutely Tiger. All the way back to when Tom Clemens, who is now an NFL quarterback coach. Tom Clemens was our quarterback back in the days of Rocky DiPietro. And anyway, Yes, I went to many a football game at Ivor Wynne Stadium, watched them all. I get in trouble when I say this a lot. The NFL is clearly the superior league. I'm not absolutely it is 100%. The absolute worst team in the NFL would beat the shit out of the Grey Cup winning CFL team, no doubt. But I contend in many ways CFL has the better game. There are a couple of CFL rules I would love to see the NFL adopt. First of all, no fair catch. Forget fair catch. I want to see action. John, you're going to blow people. Yeah, there's a rule in the CFL that says that in a punt return or something like that, there's a 5-yard rule where you as a defender can't be within 5 yards when they first catch the ball. So that prevents injuries and stuff like that and guys being defenseless when they get hit. But no bloody fair catch. I like that. I like that a lot. Number 2, I like that the CFL, for those of you who don't know the CFL game, has a twice as deep end zone. In the NFL, the end zone is 10 yards deep. In the NFL, the CFL, I believe it's 20 yards. So you have a much bigger end zone, a lot more room to work for offensive plays. Number 3, I like 3 downs. CFL only has 3 downs, not 4. It encourages a more wide open game. I like that. So anyway, yeah, there's a few other little rules, but I think there are some CFL rules that would be really cool to see the NFL adopt someday. All right, what's next?
Okay, Dukesta says, should New York Jets pursue Bill Belichick for head coach?
Somebody that many people consider to be the greatest coach of all time?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is Belichick going to go there and work for Woody Johnson?
I don't think you'd want to work with Rodgers.
Oh, and he definitely won't want to.
I don't think he'd want to deal with that. But
he will not want to work with Rodgers. Yeah. No chance he wants to work with Rodgers. At least not at this point in his career. Like, would there have been a time that he would have liked working with Aaron Rodgers? Well, yeah, I think every head coach would. Want to work with Aaron Rodgers right now? Yeah. I don't think so. He's be going into a situation where clearly somebody else is in charge. And that's Bill. There's going to be a lot of teams are going to be asking Bill Belichick to come over, but I don't think he would go to the Jets.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
All right, what's next?
This one might be a little touchy for you, but
all right.
Liam asks, how are you feeling about the Leafs going into the season?
The same way I do. The same way I do every time going into a season. Naively optimistic.
Educated wish.
Naively, it's an educated wish. Naively optimistic. It's like Pinky in the Brain. What are we doing tonight? Same thing we do every night. Try to take over the world. What's going to happen to Leafs this year? Same thing as every year. Guys, I don't know if any of you know this. I say it on my movie show a lot. The Toronto Maple Leafs have not been, forget win, but they have not been to the Stanley Cup Finals in my entire lifetime. In the entire time that I've been on this earth and drawing breath, the Toronto Maple Leafs have never even been to the Stanley Cup Finals. So how am I feeling about this year? Well, let's put it this way. We got Austin Matthews, who is like the most proficient goal scorer over the last year or two. We're going to have a good season. Toronto's going to have a good season. The question is, can they make the changes to make themselves more of a playoff team? Because we've had good seasons the last couple of years, but then we run into it in the playoffs. We got to get built for the playoffs. So realistically, we're going to have a good season and then dive out of the playoffs. Optimistically, I'm already buying my tickets to the Stanley Cup Final.
There we go.
In Toronto. So, yeah. All right, let's take one last question today, then we'll wrap it up.
All right, we got a bit of a programming question from Ruben. Would you consider doing a top 10 NFL power ranking once a week?
Yes. Yeah. I think we're going to start doing that on Mondays. Actually, no, we should probably do it on Tuesdays.
After Monday night.
After the Monday night games. Yep. Now, look, the argument against it is that everybody does top 10 power rankings. But a good argument for it is that everybody does top 10 rankings, and we should probably do ours. So, yes, I think we'll do. And by the way, tomorrow we're going to do now that the NHL, they already had the one game overseas, but really the NHL season starts tonight. And so we'll probably tomorrow, and my Leafs play their first game tomorrow, we'll probably do a season beginning top 10 power ranking. We'll see how that pans out by the end of the year. Anyway, guys, that'll do it for today's installment of Filthy Sports. Thank you guys so much for being here and joining us for this. Remember, if you guys have a topic you would like us to think about addressing, email us anytime at, and here's the email address, Filthysportscontact. That's Filthysportscontact gmail.com. You can send us in there. Now, we're not really active on Twitter right now, but if you'd like to start following, we're going to start getting active there. You can just go and follow us on Twitter right now, simply at FilthySportsX, since it's called X.com. So it's FilthySportsX. Go and follow us there. And make sure you come back and join us again tomorrow for the next episode. And guys, if you want to help the show and help the channel, please just take a quick second, just click that thumbs up button, leave a comment on the videos. All that kind of stuff helps us very much as we try to grow this little channel. So for Jonathan Voico.
All right. Sorry, Phillies. You just lost game 3, but better luck next time.
And by the way, we got to talk about some Major League Baseball tomorrow.
Yeah.
Ryan Myers.
Thanks, guys.
My name's John Campy. And until next time, my friends, go Leafs, go.